First public service announcement and full disclosure, we've been notified by WOND 1400 radio station down out of Atlantic City that they are broadcasting this call live, so everybody is aware. And then as a secondary matter, the 60-day interim report by the emergency manager has now been posted and is live on the DCA website. It's accessible there in full, and it's also been distributed via email. So at this time, we have on the call Kevin Lavin, the emergency manager, Kevin Orr, and, of course, Mayor Guardian from Atlantic City. I'm going to pass it over to Kevin Lavin to give some introductory remarks and start going through the report. And Kevin Orr will also be available for commentary here, and then we'll pass it to Mayor Guardian for his remarks at the close before we get into a brief Q&A. We have about 30 minutes in total for this call, so they're going to do their best to work through the substance of the report so we can take questions from as many of you as possible at the end. That's all I have, Kevin.
Okay, great. This is Kevin Lavin. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, especially on such short notice. As Kevin Roberts had just indicated, we're going to give, Kevin, myself, and Mayor Guardian, going to give a brief overview of the report, and then we'll turn it over to questions. The one thing I also want to mention is that on page 2 of our report, there is a disclaimer language, and everyone should realize that that disclaimer language relates to this call as well. I'm just going to jump right into this. The overview of our process so far. So we've been involved in this for almost 60 days now, and our report reflects the work that we've done to date. Some of the things that we've done is we've hired Ernst & Young to help us with the financial review and analysis. We've also had over 60 separate meetings with different stakeholders tied to the city. I should also mention up front that we have had a very good close, collaborative working relationship with the mayor, his team, with county and state personnel and city council. Very important for us. So what are we trying to accomplish here? My goal in working with these folks are to accomplish the following. First, balance the 2015 budget and address near-term liquidity issues, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Stabilize the property tax base with no property tax increases for fiscal 2015. Next, develop a plan for longer-term fiscal stability. So that would be for 2016 and beyond. Next would be create greater efficiency with city processes to support those living and conducting business in Atlantic City. And then lastly, establish Atlantic City as a desirable target for investment and development. So what do we have here? What's the situation here, and what have we found? Atlantic City is in a financial crisis. It's actually a lot more severe than we thought when we first started 60 days ago. As we all know, maybe not all of us, but for most of you, 85% of the city's revenues come from property taxes. So the preponderance of our revenues come from property taxes. I'm sure most of you also know that the rateable base has declined precipitously over the last number of years. And in particular, over the last year, it's dropped over 35%. The rateable base was $11.4 billion in 2014, and it dropped to $7.3 billion in 2015. Again, a 35% decline. Given this steep rateable base decline, the same can be said for city revenues. When we first started looking at the 2015 budget, we knew there would be a shortfall. What we've come to understand after our analysis is that the city budget has a shortfall prior to state aid of $101 million. That's $101 million. And again, that's almost directly related to the precipitous decline in the rateable base. And that assumes no property tax increases. So with no property tax increase, the shortfall for the budget 2015 is $101 million. The Atlantic City School District has a similar challenge, and that rateable base declined as well because they get their money from property taxes. And their budget gap for the 12 months ending June 30th, 2016, we approximate to be about $45 million, again, assuming no increase in property taxes. What we have been doing is a bunch of things. We've been working and coordinating with, this is on the Atlantic City School District front, we've been coordinating with the Department of Education, their people, the monitor that was named, and trying to help them close that gap. They are working on a plan to have cost reductions put in place and to also have state aid and or loans put in place so that this closes the gap of $45 million or so that the school budget has for fiscal 16. Again, this is assuming no school property tax increases, and there's no guarantee there, but that is what the absolute goal is. For the city, our goal, as I mentioned, is no property, as I didn't mention it, but I will mention, our goal is for no property tax increases in 2015. With this daunting challenge of $101 million shortfall, we have a bunch of things in front of us that we have to do. And one of the things that, one of the main priorities we have right now is to close that gap as quickly as possible. On page 17 of our report, it lists a bunch of different items, cost reduction items, revenue increase items, defer payment items, that total $130 million. We are looking into those 130 million possibilities to close that gap of 101 million that we have for fiscal 15, the city budget. So again, let me just repeat that. For the city side, we have a budget shortfall, assuming no property increases, of $101 million. We are actively trying to close that gap with the possibilities that we've listed on page 17 of our report. And those possibilities total $130 million. We believe that we will be able to close that gap of $101 million with those possibilities that we have listed on page 17 of our report. So that's what we've been doing for the first 60 days. Over the next 90 days, so from this point forward, what we're going to be doing is, number one, resolving the city and school budget and liquidity issues, as I just went through. Number two, developing a plan for longer-term fiscal stability, so that's for 2016 and beyond. Negotiate with stakeholders on what we need to achieve longer-term, on what we need to do to achieve longer-term financial stability. And then also develop a plan for a more efficient Atlantic City. So that and what you'll see in going through our report is a high-level summary of what we have in there. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Orr for his comments.
Thank you, Kevin. And so as not to belabor the issue and to get on to the Q&A, the only thing that I would add to Kevin's comments are really twofold. One, as many of you are familiar with, and as you would expect, this is going to be a somewhat dynamic and negotiated solution. We're looking for consensual resolutions of these issues as expressed in the report with all of the city stakeholders. We need to do that on a very much so time is of the essence basis, because for each quarter that we stay in this situation, the trend lines that you'll see in that report continue to go down as far as revenue and go up as far as obligations, and that's simply not good for the city. Secondly, I would caution everyone to be careful about trying to draw conclusions from any set of circumstances, rumors, suggestions, discussions, and things along those lines, because as in any dynamic process, it's highly fluid. It could change not only from day to day, it could change from hour to hour, or minute to minute as we go through phase 2 of the process. And while this is somewhat disconcerting for some, what we would hope is that people be patient enough to let the process work its way through, because the one thing we have recognized, including the mayor's office and people in the State House, everyone is trying to work towards a solution to address the issues confronting Atlantic City, issues which are a surprise to no one. Is the mayor available?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to start off thanking both Kevins that have been with us for 60 days trying to solve a problem that has been brewing probably for 30 years now. And although this is certainly the road to recovery, the road and the time frame is longer than anyone would like. but in 60 days, they certainly have been able to identify exactly what the crisis is financially in Atlantic City and the need for all of people in Atlantic City and outside of Atlantic City to be working together. And this really is a result of Governor Christie and Senate President Sweeney being so helpful and willing to help Atlantic City solve this very dire situation. And so, for my part, we certainly know what we have to do as a city. It's continue to reduce costs, reduce the size of staffing, and provide services at the most efficient manner. And we've been doing this for a year and a half, but the situation is such that even all of the cuts that we've made and that we're going to continue to make will not solve the problem in order to balance the budget. And so the casino industry has been available now to agree to a new way of assessing how they're going to pay taxes and locking that in for a period of time, and then redirecting some of the funds that they've paid to other state agencies and directing that to Atlantic City so we can deal with the debt, which is certainly one of the crippling issues in trying to balance our budget. And then, of course, we have the state government and the governor's office through DCA with a number of aid programs that they've provided to other cities that they'll consider with us. And then, of course, it's our school system, which needs, as Kevin has said, to reduce the cost of education, follow best practices of other cities, and has to save for some additional aid. And as we work this all together, we'll be healthy once again. We'll be able to provide the services that our residents need, and we'll be once again a place that businesses see